like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please silence all your cell phones and take a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. I'll begin the roll call this morning with myself. Jeff Culberson's here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Stephen is not here. Commissioner Vicky Cause.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
Moving on to public comment. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment. Does anybody in the room have public comment? If not, we'll move on to administrative business. Mr. Lothry, did you have something this morning?
I did, Commissioners. Last week when we had one of our budget work sessions, the Port Authority and LCPC were in, and we discussed having a work session with them. I think there may have been some confusion on the topic and nature of the work session. I just wanted to clarify with the board. My understanding was that that was a work session for just operations, procedures, things that they're working on right now. It wasn't budget related. Last week was their budget meeting. However, I received a request for them to have a work session over their budget and expenditures for 2025. So I just, again, wanted to clarify with the board if you understood that was the case, or if it was more of the have a work session after the budget's done, just to kind of go over.
I thought we said we'd put it off until after the budget was over, so it wouldn't make sense to talk about the budget
okay.
At that work session. That's what I thought.
Well, that's the way I thought, because we had, last year we had that discussion, and there was going to talk about a funding mechanism to be put in place, so we wouldn't have to be doing that. And it was talking about doing a ballot question, and then that never happened, so we're back to where we started. So I thought we would have a work session after the budget and come up with a permanent funding mechanism for the Port Authority. That was my take on it. So.
For next year.
Before I responded, I just wanted to make sure I understood it. That's how I understood it, but it just...
Yeah.
Because I think I've been asking for this for 2 years, and we've never gotten anywhere with it.
Yeah.
We just approve our budget and then we move on, but I would just like to have something in place that we didn't have to do this every year.
I agree.
For economic development,
Yeah.
that would work.
You guys agree on that?
That's what I thought the conversation was.
Okay. Anything else? Any of the commissioners have anything for administrative business? I have something. So to address some of the things that were said in the paper about me and fellow commissioners and courthouse staff, referred to as the swamp. When I started as commissioner, I thought it would be pretty simple. I listened to you guys, the public. We find some solutions, work on getting those things fixed. A big one was property tax being too high. This board identified at least 5 or 6 things that would drastically reduce property taxes and presented that to our representatives in Topeka. One was the LAVTR. That was a simple one. That would have saved the county taxpayers about $4 million this year. House Bill 79 was the 1% income tax presented by Senator Haley. 1% income tax would cut property taxes in half. A pilot check from the federal government would save the local taxpayers about $30 million every year. Senate Bill 8, capping the valuations, it was originally Senate Bill 8, it's changed a couple times, but the bill to cap valuation increases, and it was originally at 3%, and I think it went to 5%, and I think the last time it was percent, it was 4%, which would be the safety valve that the CAMA system is missing. Build a new bridge connecting Eisenhower to 152. In 6 minutes, you get to the airport from Lansing. Economic development would soar, causing drastic reduction in property taxes. So I thought they would take at least one of these solutions and make it happen. Nope. Come to find out, that's not how it works at all. They don't care about fixing your property tax problems. They don't work for you like the county commission does. They work for about 6 different entities. Those 6 entities do not have your best interest in their agenda. If something doesn't fit their agenda, it is not even presented for further legislation, even if it would lower your taxes. I thought about this when President Trump was pumping his fist after the assassination attempt and yelling, "Fight." He's right, we need to fight. But lately, only about 17% of the voters show up to fight. People have to take control back. The first step of that is to do some homework and figure out who the good guys are and who are the bad guys. Keep yelling at the wrong people and see if it gets fixed. Support the right people and things could get done. I've got about 2 years left to keep fighting and see what I can get done to make this a better place. But it's getting overwhelmingly frustrating when you try to help people, but you get yelled at by the people who don't understand things or don't do their homework or just listen to anyone that doesn't know what they're talking about. I hope you guys figure this out soon because time is running out. Things are going to get a lot worse. Stop fighting among each other and work together, and that's our only hope. As for the things said in the paper, the truth in taxation law they passed on counties, but not on themselves, is a ridiculous concept. It asks the county to spend the exact same money this year as it did last year, or it did 10 years ago, or even exactly what it did 20 years ago. Just like your household budget, there's no way you spend the same amount of money this year as you did 10 years ago. But that's what this bill asked for. If you did this in 10 years, you would have no public services at all. The other part of this bill that deals with transparency, we already did before the bill was passed. We already make the budget accessible to the public. We already had public hearings on the budget. We already sent out notices. This was a feel-good bill to make it look like they did something for you. Now, maybe it did help rein in some out-of-control entities across the state. I don't know. But it did nothing different for Leavenworth County. The only problem we had with the disabled veterans bill was the fact that it would raise property taxes on about 30,000 people to exempt the taxes on about 4,000 people. Everyone's taxes are too high. Find a solution that works for everyone. The county has not raised the budget double digits every year for the last 5 years. The mill levy has stayed flat the first year, and this board at present has actually lowered the mill levy every year since then. If your values stayed the same the last 5 years, you're actually paying less taxes to the county than you did 5 years ago. But most people's valuations have gone up, so they are paying more. But the mill levy doesn't actually mean that much. It's just a multiplier. The real figure to pay attention to is the actual county budget, which has only increased about the cost of living each year. We held spending to only allow the budget to raise about what the CPI is each year. Only 1 year in the last 5 has gone up double digits. They should make it a prerequisite to be a county or city commissioner before you can be a state legislator. Then it would help you understand how things actually work. You can't fix what you don't understand.
Yep.
As for me recruiting people to run against state legislators, that's one of their tricks, not mine. I have only talked to Tim Johnson's opponent twice in my life. And yes, I'm friends with the other person, but I told him, you won't like being in politics. I don't think this is a bad idea, but he didn't listen to me. But we sure do need to get some people in Topeka that will actually work for us. This entire last session accomplished nothing substantial toward your property tax. They aren't even addressing the real problem for Leavenworth County. You can't apply the same system across the state and expect it to work for all 105 counties. A property tax-based system doesn't work for Leavenworth County. We are 50% property tax exempt because of Fort Leavenworth, the schools, the churches, state properties, etc. 8 out of our 10 biggest employers don't pay any property tax. Sure, the fort provides jobs and economic impact on our community, but this system Topeka put in place for the county budget is broken. Leavenworth County is the 3rd highest income tax earner in the state, but 0 income tax goes to the county. That's why a 1% income tax would cut your property taxes in half. But our legislators won't let us vote on an income tax versus property tax. Why not? We should advocate for a pilot check for the federal government. They already pay pilot checks to every county that has a Department of Interior facility locally. They are working on changing their policy to include Department of Defense facilities. They agree they should be paying their fair share instead of burdening the locals with taxes to make up for what they are not paying. I'll use the ambulance service for an example. It costs me and you about $2 million a year to run our EMS service. When an ambulance services Fort Leavenworth or the VA, they don't pay for it. Me and you do. But most people only look at the ways the Fort helps our community, and they do in many ways. But because of the way the system in Topeka is set up, it's not helping the county budget. Unless we can tap into the income tax to lower property taxes, your property taxes are just going to keep going up. Another thing is the LAVTR they talked about in the paper. This bill shifted weight off property taxes and onto sales tax in the amount of about $4 million per year for Leavenworth County. When we asked them to just follow the law that already exists, they abolished the law instead. It's insane. We did engage Core Civic to try and find a solution to keep the biggest taxpayer in Leavenworth County operating and paying their almost $1 million tax bill every year. If they go down, your and my tax bills are going to go up to make up the difference. We thought we had a deal with ICE everyone could agree on until they got later in the negotiations and found out they might release illegals locally. That is not what the public needs. About the Cushing building, keeps getting brought up and as a bad move for the county. I don't know how anyone could see this as a bad move. When Commissioner Cos and myself started, we pushed the Council on Aging problem to the top of the list to fix. We were paying about $80,000 a year in rent for the Council on Aging in a building that the county used to own. I get why the commissioner sold the county infirmary. It was losing taxpayer money, but rent's not a plan. Rent's what you do when a plan fails. We looked for a new home for Council on Aging and several other agencies that were also paying rent, like the Extension Office. To date, we have already paid almost $1 million in rent. We could have bought a building or built one for that and not have rent anymore. Commissioner Cos talked St. Luke's folks into giving the county the Cushing building for free. Then we used about $4 million of the federal grant ARPA funds to remodel the building. None of that came from local property tax. We moved all the county offices that were paying rent into the Cushing building so they don't pay rent anymore. We also rent out the third floor of the building to other tenants, and that rent pays for all the utilities and towards the maintenance on the building. So we're not only there rent-free, we become a landlord instead of paying rent. Then he talked in the paper some more about long-term elected people being a problem. I agree sometimes the wrong people get in there and stay forever. But the good long-timers bring a lot of experience and know how things actually work and know what's important and what works and what doesn't. The challenge for you is to figure out which ones are the good ones and which ones are not. But the bigger picture is, why are we spending so much time arguing when we are all supposed to have the same goal? I don't understand that. Probably never will. But I'll keep fighting for the next 2 years and see what we can fix. But it's really hard when the public listens to the wrong people. That makes us spend time defending things that don't need to be defended instead of working on the solutions. Yes, keep up the fight, but know who should be fighting and who is fighting for you. I'm always available to talk to anyone about any of these issues. I wish there was some way to just make everyone know everything they need to know all at once, but the system we have is terrible. Bad information rules over facts. And like I said, keep yelling at the wrong people and see if it gets fixed. So
Very good, Jeff.
any additional
Just
comments?
on that, so it said you were criticized for recruiting people to run.
Yeah.
I've recruited a lot of people, including people to run for my seat. I recruited them. I thought that's what we did when we lived in the United States of America.
Find somebody
Try and find somebody to run for these offices. I didn't know it was limited to a certain few. My bad.
And that's one way to look at it on top of it.
You know, I encourage people to run against me. I did. So, and then there was something in there about you testified against that one property tax bill.
Disabled veterans.
Our only concern is where the money was going to come to make up that difference, that it wasn't going to get shifted to the other property tax, the people paying property tax. I mean, that's great. I mean, I wish every bill out there went through an impact study to see how it's going to affect the locals.
You'd think it would.
Or a bill, or come up with a bill that says no unfunded mandates back to the counties or the cities. If the state's going to pass these laws, they need to figure out how they're going to fund it and not affect it to send it back to the locals to make up the difference and remain revenue neutral at the same time. So There needs to be a little more thought put in some of this, and the worst thing you do is bundle these bills all together.
Yeah, that whole system.
That
is
whole
good and
bundle
go.
of them bills need to stand alone and be voted on separately, because once you bundle that stuff together, there's good things and there's bad things, and sometimes the bad things outweigh the good things.
Well, they managed to be able to pass something in a special
Overnight.
session overnight, yet
No, star bonds, yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to address some of the issues that really can impact our local citizens. We failed miserably. I'm glad the Social Security passed.
Yeah,
That is
that's,
amazing.
we need to give credit to the legislature for getting
Yes.
the tax off Social
Absolutely.
Security. That is a
Absolutely.
great thing. It should have never been on there in the first place, but I do want to give them credit and acknowledge that they did get that tax off of Social Security.
Yep.
That's huge for
That's a
folks
good one.
on fixed income. That is huge.
But deciding to punish the counties, county governments for trying to advocate for the return of that local ad valorem, I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's uncalled for. We were trying to advocate at the local level
Mm-hmm.
for the people that they pay the taxes locally.
And that's a good example of what I'm talking about, where everybody in the public that I explained what the LABTR was, not one person would have said, I don't think we need that or we shouldn't do that. Everybody in the public said, yeah, well, why don't we get that back? We should have that back. And they didn't do it. So how are they working for the public? Who decided to get rid of the LABTR? It wasn't Joe Jackson.
It's not a money issue.
I know it's another
They
issue.
have money.
It's pretty simple, and I think Jeff, you addressed it. When you've got $3 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion
There you go.
slush fund, as I call it, and you can't fix the property tax problem that we have, because no matter what party you involve, the party leadership tells you not to vote that way. That's a problem, folks. Some people get elected to be elected next year. I didn't. I got elected to do what's right. If I don't get elected, or if I run and people vote me out, that's
Amen.
fine. But if you don't attack the problem, that's why you're going to start seeing people that are coming from counties and cities running for these positions. And it may take a few years, but they'll get in there with the experience and say, wait a minute. And that leadership is going to have to adjust, or we're going to continue going. But leadership like that telling you, you can't be on this seat next term, or we won't support you for what you're doing if you don't support the leadership. Folks, that's just not the way to do business. There should be you should be able to talk this openly and then discuss. I know how the money plays. Money buys politics. Let's not be foolish up past this, the county, when you state and federal, it buys some of them with the money you get. I've seen some things in the last couple of weeks that really would have just surprised me, how people have put money in something just to get somebody in office that'll be a yes, continue to be a yes vote. It's wrong, folks. It's just wrong.
And that's what I talked about when I said, I wish they made it a prerequisite to be a city or county commissioner.
I've
before
always
you're a
said that.
state legislator, because so here's 12 pages of exempt groups.
Right.
Every year.
The list
Every
goes
year.
on and
The list
on.
keeps growing.
This group's exempt and that group's exempt. Well, every time they exempt a group, me and you's taxes go up.
Shifts it.
Right.
It's like they
It's a
don't
shift.
understand that. And then
Tax shift.
here's a list of the at least $12 million a year of the county budget that's state unfunded mandates. Missouri passed a Hancock law saying no more state unfunded mandates because it's not fair for the state to pass legislation but not pay for that and expect the local taxpayers to pick it up. And I don't think they understand this, but they would if they worked in the city or the county first. And that's, I think,
I
the problem.
agree with that. That's what I've been preaching for a long time now. I also think we've sent some good people, and there's some good people in the legislators. There are really some good people. But something happens once you get up there. I don't know if you worry about your job or worry about the election or what, but something happens when you're out of the area and you don't remember what the people that put you in office told you. But folks, if we get 16%, 18% voting turnout, you're not going to see a change.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to wake everybody up. And it's hard to get that information out. But I will say this. LVTR has been on, I know legislators that have told me over and over, we're getting the message. Well, then we should have acted on it.
Didn't get the message. They
I
just
don't-
abolished it. That's not getting the message.
Mike, you were absolutely right. Of all the years for them to vote to do away with it, when they had that surplus of money there, when they could have fixed it,
I don't understand.
that's just ridiculous.
And to, chastise the Board of County Commissioners, and I know that was Commissioner Smith and I had, when the CCA and the people from ICE were trying to approach the county. Only 2 commissioners could be approached, and the 2 of us met just to open the discussions,
Yep.
and we never made any commitment whatsoever.
In fact, we had hard questions
Very hard questions.
for them. So
And then, as we were getting the questions answered, when our city, that was the location of what that facility would have been, indicated that they objected to in any way doing it, we dismissed all discussion and
And a lot of
negotiations
people
or
don't
even
understand.
conversations.
And a lot of people don't understand the reason that you were advocating for it was because they pay $1 million a year in taxes.
And that
if
was-
they stop paying that, your taxes are going to pick it up.
yeah, but I will say after Commissioner Cos and I went and met with them
Right.
over at CCA and asked the hard questions, and we got some answers that weren't exactly what
Exactly.
we thought were the answers we were getting. We came back, and as I recall, I made a motion. I'm not
That was in our
in a
executive, that's
second
correct.
that we stopped negotiation, and that's what we did. A lot of things go on behind the scenes, but all you have to do is ask what's happening up there, and we'll be gladly share it with you. But people who keep get their picture in the paper and keep doing this and doing that, folks, look what they're really doing for the community. It's nice to get your picture in the paper. It's nice to be standing by somebody. It's nice to do a video. But do your homework. Are they really helping you as a citizen? If they're not helping you, then you only have one choice to make. That's to get out and vote and let's make a difference.
And doing homework, like I said.
Yeah.
So you mean everything that's said in this letter to the editor is not true?
I don't know if everything is not true, but there's a lot of it
Oh, okay.
is not.
Yeah, I don't think that, what it gets to me is it's not just that it's not true. It's misleading. You know, it's like you tell half a story, but you didn't tell the other half of the story,
that's
how we
what I
got
was
there.
talking about
And
before.
that's what's not coming out in these things. And people would ask them direct questions, then ask the question after that. You'd say, oh, well, that doesn't make sense at all.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I said, the core civic, in 2 sentences, we're trying to save that $1 million taxes that they're paying. But in the end, they said they were going to release illegals locally.
were gonna have
so
that.
that's not
It's
worth
not-
the $1 million.
That's
Yeah.
not acceptable.
So you
it's
just
that simple.
So maybe they shouldn't maybe they don't want to let the facts get in the way of a good story.
That's it.
Well, you know, there's
What's
one
going on.
last thing I'll say on this, and Jeff brought it
Yeah,
out.
we got to be.
But I need to say this when I say, Jeff and I have 2.5 years, something like that left. I know a lot of people that won't run because of the beating, no matter what position it's in. School board.
It wears you out.
It wears you out. School board, the city, the county. But if good people don't step forward and become the people that make the change, the people that are creating the problems and getting things done their way and not everybody's way is going to continue. I know it's tough. I've taken some beatings. John Jacobs and I were let go in Lansing because we took a beating, the truth be known, but we did the right thing, and that's the way we preach this. You do the right thing no matter what. It's never a wrong time to do the right thing, and if you don't get reelected, but you can look in the mirror and you say, I tried my best, that's all there is. We've got to get back to that.
And that's what I was talking about with we got to keep fighting. Only 17% are showing up. But even if 80% showed up, you don't want people voting if they don't do their homework and figure out who actually is the good guys and who's the bad guys. So,
Yep.
I agree.
Early voting started, so
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. I'm going to go
100%.
vote as soon as I get out of here.
Anything else for
No, sir.
administrative business? Anybody?
I've said enough.
All right, we'll move on to consent agenda.
It needed said.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Consent agenda passes. Formal board actions. Discuss the 2025 mill levy. You want to open that up, Mr. Lothar?
Commissioners, I know it says discuss and it's under formal board action, but there is some direction that needs to happen here before you go to the next 2 items. As you know, we are required to determine whether or not you're going to remain revenue neutral or exceed it. And based on this past conversation, I think it's clear we understand we cannot remain revenue neutral, especially with some of the challenges that we face. And you heard those during last week's budget presentation. Things like the 911 fund that we brought up, that it is underfunded by about $250,000 to $300,000, primarily because the fees are no longer coming in off the phones like it used to. Everybody had a landline. Every line was taxed. Now, for everybody uses a cell phone and only one cell phone per plan is taxed, and they don't tax every line that goes into a business if they have a voice over IP system. So changes like that overall require that we still have funding going up. And the need for funding is increasing annually on those types of things, but the source of revenue to do so is going away. And as Commissioner Culbertson has pointed out numerous times, property taxes are our only way to make that up. So that's one of them. The funding for the EMS and paramedics was another one that you heard last week, the challenges that we're having there. The additional requests from outside agencies, whether you intend to fund those or not. Some of the agencies, at least one that wasn't on this year, we added at the middle of this year in 2024, so that's been added back in if you consider that. But all those things add up. The courthouse obviously is an issue that we're going to have to address, and then you also have discussed your desire to increase spending for roads because the expenditures in roads have increased in double digits as well, and it's almost every year double digits. Even though the CPI may only be 3%, the cost of concrete's up 95% over the last 5 years. Rock's up 43%. I think you heard Bill say. Oil is up in the 50% range. So, those are going up 10% a year. And I think that compounds when we're not increasing his budget at that same rate. He just falls further behind. So, with all those challenges, I think it's obvious that we can't remain revenue neutral. So, we're asking the board to consider adopting the resolution stating that we won't remain revenue neutral. However, we do have to set what would be the maximum mill levy as part of that. You can lower the mill levy after we do that, but you can't increase it. So I've provided some information for you last week, obviously as part of the budget presentations, and there's a consideration that you have to make if you want to maintain the flat mill levy, and we know what that means. The items I just brought up, there's not really a good way to fund those. Specifically the courthouse. How are we going to fund the repairs to the courthouse? And the road and bridge. I've provided you a plan that I think can address the other issues, but I can't, in this budget, remain with a flat mill levy and absorb the courthouse repairs and increase road and bridge spending. I can't do either of those two things with maintaining a flat mill levy. So I'd like for you to consider that, maybe discuss it this morning on what you think the maximum increase in the mill levy might be. Whether it's one mill that we split between the courthouse and road and bridge, whether it's a mill for each, or whether you want to remain flat and the other items that we just discussed, like the 911 funding, the county attorney, the EMS, the outside agencies, they just don't get funding. So those are the things that need to be considered. It's not a final decision today, but if you're going to increase the mill levy, you have to give direction today on how far you want to increase.
Well, I'll be the bad guy. As hard as it is to, in all my years, I've always kept the mill levy flat, or we decreased it just a few times here, but
every year.
Yeah, but with the cost of honestly, the cost of living, we were still fighting it. But now that we have this building, and we know it's going to be $2-3 million, that may be short. In my opinion, we're going to have to fund that. We don't have any funds to take care of that. So, I guess what I'm telling you, Mark, or telling County Commissioner and the public is, we've got an emergency here. And this is going to be for a few years because we don't even know what the total cost is, but we know it's going to be in the millions. And we don't have enough money set aside for that. No one does for that kind of hit. So I'm open for suggestions, but I don't see how we can stay at flat mill levy with the things we've got coming in front of us.
And I don't expect us to be revenue neutral. I think that's a ridiculous concept, but
Yeah.
I think we're pretty proud of the fact that we held the mill levy flat the first year this board was together, and then we've lowered it every single year since then for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But this year, because of the extraordinary things that popped up, like the courthouse and the 911 and the road and bridge fund deficit, I don't see how we can remain with a flat mill levy this year.
Yeah, I'm not going to support a mill levy increase. I know we can't remain revenue neutral. We never have, but if we keep like these outside agencies and all these other funds that keep coming in, if we just keep giving money away, nobody wants to go and help us fight to get the money from the state that they owe us. I mean, you know, everybody wants to talk about it, but as soon as we approve their budgets, we don't get any help from them trying to lobby to get anything back from the state. So
You're talking about some of the outside
like the LAV,
agencies
yeah,
that are
they're all the ones
state-tied,
that always got their hand out wanting the county to give them money.
that are tied to the state with funding.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
the
they get
extension.
nothing,
Yeah.
and then so
But I don't
I'm
think
for a
that
flat.
would
I'm for a.
touch the-
I'll support a flat mill levy,
So you're thinking they should be able to ask the state for more money instead of the county?
or lobby to get
The county's
the
funds.
county's funds back to them.
Yeah.
Everything they've cut, all the millions of dollars, you know, they shifted back to us.
Well, but is that going to be enough to address the issues that we're talking about with the 911 and the county attorney and the EMS and the,
Mark, what's the total, you know, off the top of your head, what the total outside agency cost would be?
Well, it was, two out of the outside agencies were contractually obligated to provide funding.
Mhm.
So if you take them out,
Isn't it around 900,000 for all of it, including those that we still have to?
I think it's closer to
State
2 million, wasn't it?
if you would include the mental health, the CASA, and the
No, it's bigger than
economic
that.
development,
Yeah.
if you include those three things, then it was near $1 million. But like I said, two of those were contractually obligated to. So if you take those out, it's closer to probably $550,000, including the economic development. If you completely eliminated the outside agency funding, like 100%, not counting the ones we're contractually obligated against, you still wouldn't cover more than likely what you need for the courthouse. But it would be close. It kind of depends on whether you intend to pay off the repairs over a 5-year period or a 10-year period. You know, a $500,000 probably takes us somewhere between 7 and 8 years, depending on what the bids come in, to pay off the courthouse repairs. A full mill, you know, obviously 5 years we'd be done, 4 to 5 years.
And depending on if we can get it off the registry to fix it without making it qualify for the historical.
We don't know if there's a savings, what that savings would be.
Yeah.
Mark, I guess I'm asking, and not that I agree with that, but I guess I'm asking with everything that's needed, you're probably looking at 1.9 or 2 mills if you do it the way everybody wants us to do it. Is that correct?
Well, I think that your challenge probably is, what do you want to do with road and bridge? Last year we increased them about 1.2 to $1.5 million. I don't remember the exact dollar amount. Do you want to do that again this year? If so, that takes a mill. I mean, that's a mill. A mill is a little over $1 million, $1,100,000. Just figure that out.
we can't, now this is what we're talking about right now though, is just the maximum, but we can still have the discussions
Come
back.
to come back and we
Yes.
can make it
Yes.
Yeah.
and make
Yes.
those decisions as
And
we
bring it down.
continue contemplating
If
how
we
to
need to.
handle our budget.
Yep.
So what we're doing
Give them the
in
max.
this would be giving the max, but we can still begin to
Work backwards.
reduce or eliminate or find
Right.
other
Yeah.
solutions in the
And we can go
meantime
down,
and
but
over
we
the
can't
next.
go up.
Right, we can
Whatever
go
we say
down.
today is the max we could
This
get.
is the max,
But we can always lower it
but we can lower it.
after that. Everything I'm looking at, I think it's going to take about 2 full mills to stay afloat with the new problems that have popped up on top of just providing the same services we had last year. So I don't think it would need an increase over 2 mills.
No, I think that would probably be a worst-case scenario. And again, this is just establishing the max. Over the next month, we will really probably 3 to 4 weeks, we'll hammer out what the final budget looks like with the board, and then you'll set the actual mill levy after August 24th, I think is the soonest you can.
So, but that, I'm just saying, but it's, for the clarification, because we don't want misinformation or
Yeah. I
that.
think, one of the challenges we're talking about here, I just want to be clear, some of these are not optional.
Right,
You have to fund the 911.
right.
It's unfortunate that the fees that they collect no longer cover their expenditures, but it's been going on for several years. It's just caught up to where now they have no cash reserves, and so now you have to make a change. And that change happens this year and next going forward, so including next year. So that's not optional. That's a minimum of $300,000 next year that you have to put into the budget somehow.
If we would have got the LAVTR funds, that was about $4 million. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. Yeah.
Well, if a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his butt.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
You would be able to address all these issues and lower the levy 2 mills for the levy.
Just with that one issue.
Well, just saying, starting at 2 million, I'm okay with. That's not where I would hope we'd end up when we get through talking, but we got to have a max to go with.
Yeah, and I think we need, because that enables us to really have serious conversations and make a decision of where specifically, if we need to, where we are willing to make those cuts and where we can and where we can't.
So just for the sake of this, I would suggest a 2 mil.
It's the starting point.
Yeah. I mean, that's just saying that's the max you can get. And we know we're not going to go over that.
So
It doesn't sound like we would approve anything that would.
you have to authorize, because we have to send out the revenue neutral letters. This is back to the transparency bill that really doesn't do a lot for us.
It's ridiculous.
It makes you-
$50,000 worth of
It
postage.
makes you set a maximum before you even have the opportunity to get to that final number and set your budget amount. Because if you don't set the maximum,
And we also
you
have
go
to
up.
pay for it to send out.
So the general overall mill levy, which is countywide, currently is 35.779. If you are going to add 2, you would take it up to 37.779. Local service road is 9.003. I would guess that will remain the same. So when you go to these next 2 items, when you make the approval, I would ask that as part of that motion that you say, if it's the first motion where we're levying a property tax rate exceeding revenue neutral for 2024, the resolution 2024-16, that you add that, the maximum amount of the levy would be 37.779. If you want to add 2 mills to discuss.
You're going to
not
make that
approve, but
motion?
discuss.
Yeah, I'll make a motion this time. Okay, are we there yet, or are we?
So do we make a motion
Yeah,
to
You have
not
to,
exceed?
as part of your next motion, you need to include.
I'll do it, Jeff.
Okay.
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-16, leveling property tax rate exceeding the revenue rate for tax year 2024 at 37.779.
Have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with myself. Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1 for that one.
And I'm voting no because we had sent letters to outside agencies for the last 2 years that I know of, and the 3 years we'd sent don't expect reduced funding, then it said don't expect any funding. Now,
Those are places where Doug knows that we can have those discussions, though, in the next several months to say you're not going to receive additional funding. I mean, we just can't afford to do it.
Yeah,
And
which
we
I agree
can.
with what you're saying. This was just
but then
basically to say
a lot
we're
of
just
them
not
had
going
the
to go
nerve
over
to
to
send in enhancements after we told them
I saw
not to
that.
expect any funding.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you just can't keep handing out money.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right.
So,
The next one's the special funds.
yeah,
That mill levy's going to remain flat.
At 9.003.
That mill levy will remain flat at 9.003.
003.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make that motion.
Second.
You will have to actually do the resolution.
I will move that we approve Resolution 2024-17 exceeding the revenue neutral rate for special funds not to exceed mill levy at 9.003.
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. So now the real conversations will happen. That's all I have for formal board actions. Presentation and discussion items. Quarterly reports. We have planning and zoning first.
Morning, John.
Hey, John.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Give you a quick overview of what planning and zoning has accomplished in the second quarter. We've had a substantial increase in building permits, platting actions, a number of different items that's reviewable on that last chart in the backside of your submittal. Building permits are about 83% higher than they were last year at this time. Not a great indicator of what's going to happen throughout the rest of the year, but I can tell you they're 83% higher today than they were last year. Accessory structure is about 20%. Subdivision plats are about 38%. So people are platting, they are building currently, and the pace doesn't seem to be letting up. So in general terms, we've got 30 single-family building permits right now issued as of today. 57 accessory dwelling units. We've got about 40 development cases, 33 of which are plats. So all the rezones you saw at the end of last year are now moving through the process to the platting process and eventually building. So substantial amount of lots are being created out there right now. From a policy standpoint, as you know, we've done our annual review of the subdivision regulations, took that through Planning Commission, and it's under your review currently. Same applies to the comprehensive plan. The third component to that is building code updates. We had our last meeting last night. We anticipate that we'll be bringing that to a work session sometime mid-August for you to review and consider. Those are the three major policy items that we've accomplished through the second quarter of this year. And with that, I would answer any questions that you may have.
John, on the single-family homes, that 16 in 2023, and we got 30, and that's just as of today, right?
Well, it's actually about a week and a half ago. So
okay, so we've already doubled it. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for John?
Not really. We're heading in the right direction.
I agree with that. I agree with that. We're heading in the right direction.
Okay.
I mean, these are things that once they're built, they start paying taxes.
Yep.
They're not property tax exempt for 10 years, like things. So.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John.
Next, Public Works, Warren Bill.
Morning, Bill.
This one's going to be a while.
You can do it real quick.
The famous last words.
We'll do this real quick. Well, when John's busy in planning and zoning, Public Works is busy. And so to segue off of his, the 33 plats that are going through the review process, go through the Public Works Department, and have to be processed for all of their drainage reports, roadways, and all of the various engineering aspects of the project. So over the past quarter, there has been a tremendous load on the department, just trying to maintain a 10-day review window on those. I don't think we've missed any, but I could maybe be pointed out one or two if Mr. Herring was here. But we primarily have not missed any 10-day return windows, and we strive to do that for every project. So it's been quite an effort here over the last quarter to get through all of those. The Road and Bridge Department, we are now in the chip and seal season. A lot of patching had been going on during the last quarter. We have used a tremendous amount of chip and seal oil, and we are using the trap rock, which is a change in aggregate type from the previous years. Currently today, I think we're on 155th Street, so if you're traveling north of Baser, you should see the crews out there. We're continuing with the culvert replacements. We did 31 this past quarter. I don't have the number right here in front of me of the tens of thousands that we do have in the county that we are responsible for maintaining. But we do maintain all of the crossroad and driveway culverts once they're installed. Budgets are generally a bit higher than the percentages you would have seen at the second quarter into second quarter last year. That's primarily due to inflation, and we had to carry over some of the trap rock expenses. We did have a little bit of money remaining in
the road and bridge budget last year, albeit not a lot. But we did have a small amount that we would have preferred to have spent, a few $100,000 on the trap rock, but it came across the rail, and so we weren't going to prepay for material that was coming on a railway with a contractor that we had not worked with, obviously. So those percentages are slightly higher than you will have seen in the past, and we are going to be very diligent in watching these budgets in order to make sure that we don't go over at the end of the year, but they are running a little ahead of schedule, a little hot. So currently, we have all positions filled.
Wow.
That's been about a week. So by next week, we will not. That will not be the case.
But still, congratulations.
Well, that's good for a week to
Wow.
Thank you.
Week to week, but I would say that we generally have an opening every 2 weeks in the department somewhere, and we are continuously going through that hiring process. So of the date, I believe we've only been currently fully staffed for about 2 days when this presentation was put together. So, but we are currently fully staffed. The engineering intern position was removed as part of the 2025 budget proposal that you saw in order to come up with the numbers that we presented and maintain a flat mill at the time. That position has been vacant for 2 years, and we have not received any applications. We have reached out to numerous colleges and advertised it in various ways, but we have not received any applications for that position. It would be nice to have, but apparently the need is not out there. There's the engineering firms that are private in the private sector are offering very good opportunities, and there is a ton of work. And so I don't think that we're competitive in that arena. The projects are ongoing. Primarily right now we have bridge projects that are, we have a multitude of bridge projects and large culvert projects that are ongoing. The A60 bridge that was on the dead-end roadway was completed. It was actually assigned a new NBI number last week and had its inspection and entered into the state system. So that bridge is completely done. We no longer have any wooden bridges left in Leavenworth County. T34 is moving along ahead of schedule. It is on 219th Street north of Tonganoxie, and we are anticipating an early August deck pour for that structure. A49 near Jarbelo is ongoing. They're actually running a back truck out there yesterday. There was a large fiber optic line, a L3 communications line on that project that was discovered right when we went to construction that was not part of the relocation efforts prior to it. So we will be locating that line and working around it to ensure that the bridge gets constructed, but we do not want to.
Several lines, isn't it?
It's 12.
That's several. Okay, a dozen.
Well, we haven't seen
a dozen fibers. Okay.
Yeah, we have not seen it, but that's what the water district.
We've seen it when they put it in.
Yeah.
And they plowed it in.
Hopefully it's deep. I don't know.
It actually got plowed through a couple of our crossroad culverts, and that caused an issue.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's at least 14 feet deep.
Nope.
We'll find out. Every area is probably different. The Tonganoxie Road safety improvement projects are moving forward quickly. We do have 3 properties in the appraisal process for the second phase of that project. KDOT has indicated their desire, and we agree with tying those projects together so that they could have the same contractor and reduce the closure window of Tonganoxie Road. It does create some logistical issues with the timing and the funding of those projects. But we anticipate an early 2025 letting with the construction ongoing through next year. So it does complicate things slightly if they're not complicated enough with the federal funding, but we are excited to have those projects moving forward. I provided a short update on County Route 30 last week. We are trying to get through the federal earmark funding regulations, and and continuing to work with KDOT to try to push that project forward as quickly as possible. It is currently under a 120-day environmental review, and we are hopeful that we can get through that process at the 120-day mark. We have several bridges that are coming up that are listed here that I could answer any questions about. We're going to have to close Fairmount Road again. You will receive phone calls about that. That is the next bridge to be let is on Fairmount Road. It was approximately 2 miles east of the last bridge that was replaced. So it'll be another haunch slab bridge with about a 6-month closure. And so we anticipate that being completed hopefully over the winter and with the asphalt going in the spring.
What month do you think it's going to close?
We're hoping we can coordinate it with the 187th Street project. We don't want to have 187th and Fairmount closed at the same time.
Yeah.
And so depending on when that contractor starts, but we were anticipating it closing in January.
Oh, well, that's good. It'd be after a lot of farmers use that road to get to crops to Walcott.
It definitely won't be before December.
Okay.
The way we're looking at it right now, we're looking to basically segue straight from the November 1st completion on 187th to that project as far as road closures, because we'll have Eisenhower closed at nearly the same time as well. And so depending upon when the precast structures on Eisenhower Road come in, will make a difference in when we close those. We don't want to have every east-west and north-south major corridor closed in that area all at the same time. So we haven't set a bid date, just looking forward to bidding those and wanting to let you know. The ARPA culvert replacement projects are ongoing. Julius Cos Construction is the contractor that's currently working on 206th Street. The K-37 was completed, and the north structure of the two structures is complete, with the only remaining item as paving of the road, I believe. And we are looking to move that forward. Mega KC has ordered their precast structures and has engineering approval for those structures, and that project is just basically waiting on the delivery of the precast. The bridge inspections were completed for the 2024 biannual bridge inspections during the last quarter, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. We did have a few bridges that were obviously downgraded, but we continue to work with Finney and Turnip Seed on that, and use that list to prioritize our replacement schedule.
I know that I've heard people, saying, well, one way you could save money is you shouldn't do as many bridges in 1 year. We've discussed this. Not sticking to our plan gets us further behind, costs us more money, and eventually it's time to pay up. Well, years ago, they slowed down what should have been funding for the road and bridge, and we got behind, and now we're trying to catch up. And some of these bridges, they wouldn't have to be closed necessarily, but they would drop to a level where you would no longer be able to support like bus traffic or commercial traffic. So that's not really an option or a solution that is long-term viable.
Yeah.
And we've already that's a problem that happened in the past that we're now trying to catch up on.
Yeah. Great.
And that is the situation on Fairmount Road. We had two structures on Fairmount Road that were going to be downgraded to a point that school bus traffic would no longer be able to use that road. And as well, the structure on 187th at Stranger Road with the co-op and the county shop both on that road and over 2,000 vehicles a day. That road was also going to be downgraded to a 3-ton bridge, which basically is light pickup truck and car traffic only. And so while we aren't waiting until we are in an E58 Millwood Road scenario, we are trying to tackle these bridges in an order that keeps regular school bus traffic and larger traffic able to cross these bridges. I believe in the report, I don't want to to say the wrong number, but somewhere around 40, I believe, bridges that we had that had a weight limit of 15 tons or less. And so we are seeing those bridges before they reach a closure state being downgraded and downgraded as they rust or have degradation issues in the concrete. I'm going to skip forward unless anybody has any project-specific questions.
I was just going to say on that note, there's a bridge coming up. I think it's in our plan that I think I'm going to suggest that we close. It has like 5 cars a day traffic, and so I think it's a candidate for the triage map we were talking about, is figuring out which bridges absolutely have to be replaced and which ones don't. So there's one coming up pretty quick that I'm going to suggest we don't replace. So I think that's what we're going to have to start looking at more than not.
Yeah, I'm familiar with which bridges.
It's not a big detour either.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an inconvenience.
Impacted.
Yeah.
Or impactful.
Yeah.
And that structure was one of the ones that was downgraded. It has a horizontal
Yeah, it does.
crack across the arch. It's a concrete arch structure.
Yeah.
So on 158th and K32, that KDOT project, where are they at on that?
It is in design. The last update I had, I actually got an update on that project last week. It was in design and for a roundabout.
Yes.
And they are going to move that roundabout south away from the cemetery in order to complete the grading into the properties to the south a little bit.
So this is already being done. I just heard somebody running for public office wanted to fix that intersection. I thought it's already being
It's in design currently.
Yeah. KDOT has identified it, and it's going to be a project. So it's happening. So.
The other project that we get a lot of questions about is the R-Cut at Parallel. And KDOT announced last week, while it is a bit confusing and there still are accidents, it had the highest fatality and serious injury accident rate of any intersection in the entire state. And from the completion of that project until last week, there had not been any serious injury or fatality accidents since the completion of the project. So they were excited to announce that. Has not reduced, I don't think, the total number of accidents, but the severity has been reduced.
Right.
That's important.
Just like a roundabout.
I was just going to
so
say that.
confusing. People automatically slow down a mile ahead of the time.
Yeah, I still, even understanding what the project is, I still can't figure out where to go sometimes.
So do you know what year K32 and 158th roundabout will be constructed? 26?
Yeah, I would assume 27.
27.
Because they'll probably be permitting, and it'll probably get completed sometime in 25, and then they'll go through a utility relocation. Just from our project on 158th, I know there's 1,000 pair phone line down there at that intersection. And so there will be some extensive utility relocations that have to be completed in right-of-way acquisition. So I would assume 27.
Well, I mean, I knew it was happening. I just thought it wasn't nothing new that somebody was going to get it done. So, already done.
That was fast.
That's fast. Didn't even get elected.
So for the Noxious Weed Department and their mowing, we are continuously mowing. All paved roads have been mowed once, and we started a second round on the paved roads. As of June 26, 75% of all the roads have been mowed, and they were working in Easton and Kickapoo townships to complete the remaining roads that had not been mowed. Primarily, we're trying to mow them enough to keep the trees out of the right-of-way what we can and move it back, but this is not aesthetic mowing, this is maintenance mowing, and we do get a lot of calls about mowing. We are continuing to sell chemicals until...
How's the supply going?
Currently, we still have some. The cost increase that has incurred since COVID in 2021 has kind of slowed the number of sales that we were having prior to that. And so while it costs more, I think we're just seeing a little bit less product being purchased. The survey department, we did lose our survey technician during the last quarter, and we were able to fill that position. We are currently in the training process of that. We did hire a person with some education, but no firsthand surveying knowledge, so there will be a learning curve there. The application was open for several months without any qualified applicants, so we started looking at other qualification factors such as education and willingness to take additional training, and did select a candidate for the position. There was a map included in the quarterly report. We are working in Kickapoo Township. It is probably 80% complete for the third township survey. So we'll be excited, hopefully sometime next quarter, depending on how the training goes, or definitely by the end of the year, we will have completed the third township survey, and the three most difficult townships as far as the number of missing corners and double corners. So that's exciting that we'll be completed with that. Fleet management is going strong. We have a continuous replacement schedule going. We are meeting with them next week. We have several vehicles on order, and we continue to try to process and upfit all the vehicles and have them delivered turnkey and ready to go for the departments. And the GIS department continues to do a great job. As mentioned in the last couple weeks, we had a GIS analyst position that was filled with another individual with a PhD, and she is learning the aspects of county government in order to be able to fulfill her job requirements. She came from an education sector, so there's a bit of a learning curve there to get into a county government system, but excited to have her on board and looking to continue with the strong work.
The GIS department looks like it's been kind of busy there. With it.
Yeah,
I mean, they all are, but especially the things I'm seeing getting accomplished here.
Yeah, they've been doing a great job, and they work with every department almost in the county.
Yeah.
And so someone does a good job of trying to document those changes. We try to track our changes very closely in the GIS department because when you're doing work for other departments, you need a paper trail of what they've requested and what has been completed. And so whether it's the appraiser's office or the 911 office or economic development or just any office that bridge, they interface with everyone. The clerk's office during elections, we print a lot of maps and help them map out all of their voting locations. So they do a lot of work with a lot of people, and very rarely, almost never, have I received negative feedback from that interaction.
And I appreciate you allowing that, advocating for GIS to work for all the other departments. That was one of the big problems we had in the beginning of GIS was it was under one department, and then it was difficult to work for all the other departments and maintain a balance.
Yeah.
So that works good if you're acceptable to that.
Yep. No, I think that's the stronger they are, the better and more streamlined a lot of processes can be. That kind of wraps it up.
Did we get any response, you or Mr. Lothry from Jefferson County, about our border road MOU agreement as far as maintenance, which side's which? I talked to one of the commissioners from over there. I talk to him all the time, so I don't remember if he called me or I called him, but just to get a clarification on the letter we sent him to make sure we're on the same page, and he understands it completely and was going to talk to them and said he'd get back to us, but I didn't know if you'd heard anything yet.
No, I reached out to him I know they have their meetings on Mondays, and I reached out to him a week ago, and we had mailed that letter prior to the 4th of July, maybe the Tuesday before the 4th of July on the 2nd, and they said that they had not received it from the clerk.
Okay.
And so I believe that they have now received it.
Yeah, he got it now. So.
But I have not heard anything back.
Okay. He said they were going to talk about it. They just wanted to understand it better. And once I talked to him, he said, yeah, we get it now. And he agreed it needed to be looked at. So they were going to talk it over and then get back with us. But I didn't know if you'd heard anything yet.
Not officially, no.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
I don't.
Nobody else.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Good job.
As usual.
Any other presentation discussion items? We'll go around the board, I guess.
It's you first.
I had Leavenworth City last night. Saw Ed again. Nothing extraordinary about it. So that's all I have. Doug, do you have anything?
Next week's my busy week.
Mm-hmm.
Got everything.
Mark's next week too, isn't it?
Well, I just got back from San Jose from the Transit Authority Board of Directors meeting, and lots of stuff to learn and kind of absorb as we start working toward. There's a lot of conversation things, especially from the Kansas side, of trying to expand transit into this area of the northeast sector, so Leavenworth County, and hopefully there can be some movement in that. But a lot of work being done and discussions about transit in general, rail, light rail. I mean, all of those things we're discussing. So, got back last night.
Just had a couple. I had the opportunity to represent the county speaking at the Leavenworth. The international students. I saw Ed there too. Ed's making his rounds. That was a great presentation from a lot of people out there, and it was really well received. I really enjoyed that. Also, last Thursday, Marcus Major stepped down as a city council member in Lansing because now he lives in the county, and I present him with a county coin, thanking him for his service, what they do. So if you're in the city or the county or whatever, we're all in this together. So he's still on our planning commission, which I'm glad to see when Vic is saying. The other thing is I'm very, very thankful that President Trump survived that attack on him. It's a shame that things have gotten to that. But I can tell you, I think the Secret Service have a lot of questions to answer. That's all I have.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah, when you see the video, that one of the people there just kind of watched the guy up on the. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah,
is.
I mean,
it is scary.
That's law enforcement 101. I mean, come on, folks. Anyway,
That's all you have?
that's all I have.
Okay. I think that concludes
Second.
our motion to adjourn. I vote aye.
I.
Aye.
We are adjourned.